Hey everyone, Nubkeks here and welcome back to Heroes of the Storm. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at Ragnaros and his buffed Living Meteor build, his W ability, picking the talents for that which have been changed in the current patch, which has just gone live on Europe and been out about a day on the American servers. So straight up from just level 1 we have a few tweaks to his base abilities, just small little tweaks. Firstly, Living Meteor, your W. Actually, the base ability's been slightly nerfed. It used to do 72 damage at level 1. It's now doing 68 damage instead. I think that's per tick. And then Blast Wave, his E ability, which of course will apply a small movement speed buff and then explode for AoE damage to your target. Got its cooldown actually reduced from 10 seconds to 9, so you got a little bit more mobility. It's a little bit more generous in terms of that. Now the big change, or one of the big changes, of course, is the level 1 talents, where Shifting Meteor, which is the questing talent at level 1, has received a very nice buff, which is that not only is it a quest and we need to get 75 hits with our Meteor. You can see we've got 3 so far. You keep an eye on that and how we do as we're going through the game here. We're up to 9, not too bad. Whereas by default, once you finish the quest, it will make your Meteor last longer. It will last for 2.25 seconds instead of the basic amount of time. Plus, you'll also be able to redirect your Meteor once per cast to just kind of guarantee you get more hits off. We have a really nice synergy with this, a new added effect, which is that every single time an enemy gets hit by Living Meteor, within that single cast of it, of course, they're going to take 3% additional damage from subsequent hits of that same Meteor. So basically what that means is if we aim our W really well and we get someone caught in it for pretty much the whole path of that Meteor, and then again, obviously synergizing nicely with the ability to retarget it, it's going to do a whole lot of bonus damage, which is pretty sweet. You can see me trying and messing up one of the things that you ought to be doing really on Ragnaros, which is when a minion wave is walking towards you, you can drop the Meteor on it and be pulling it towards you. Okay, for example, look at that. We did loads of damage to that Fala right there. Fala's obviously one of the squishiest heroes in the game, but still, just kind of showed you she got hit in pretty much most of that Meteor and took a whole nice chunk of damage from it. Thanks to that level 1 quest, boosting that up ever so slightly. Yeah, you can pull the Meteor through minions. One of the interesting things about the Meteor build, obviously the main build for Ragnaros for the longest time has been his Q build, speccing into Empower Sulfuris and just doing more splash damage with that, and obviously questing with that, trying to last hit minions. It's a very different dynamic when you've got the Meteor quest at level 1 instead. Very different dynamic. Number 1, you can just kind of use your Q fairly thoughtlessly, and well, not thoughtlessly, but you can spend it quite quickly. You don't need to hang on to it. You're not worried about last hitting minions to finish your quest as quick as you possibly can, because you're not worried about that power spike. So you can use your Q just for wave clear, for damage, for trading in lane. It actually frees up your early game quite a lot. But then on the flip side, you kind of have that dynamic then with your W instead. So instead of using your W for loads and loads of wave clear, you're kind of you've got a good motivation to try to use it to do damage to heroes instead. So ideally you'd land it through both heroes and the minion wave. If you can do both, you're going to be pretty happy. If you can't, you're going to try, I don't know, it's one of those toss-up things. It's a fairly easy quest to finish, certainly on a map like Infernal Shrines. We probably could have killed, okay, never mind, Tastar had his E. We maybe could have killed him if we landed that Meteor properly. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the considerations with this build. I do feel like this one is a little bit more forgiving in the early game. Oh, sorry if you're hearing some noise in the background. Winston, I think, wants to go out into the back. He wants to go toilet in the back garden, so he might be coming through in case you hear some clunking around in here. At level 4, I did go for Fire Ward, and I think this is actually a really nice talent. Just in general, which is when your Living Meteor hits an enemy hero, you're going to get a charge of Spell Block, which will half the damage of the next ability that hits you, and you can have up to 2 charges. 1 second, let me just grab Winston. Winston! There you go, you can come through. Good dog. Good dog. So yeah, the Spell Block is fairly useful, actually. It's fairly useful. In this case, in this game, we're going to have to watch out very much so for Tassadar, right? His Psy Storm will shred through our Spell Block charges extremely quickly. but it's going to be pretty good against, let's say, Vala. It will reduce a fair amount of damage, which is going to be nice. It'll be somewhat useful against, let's say, sort of like the whole Uther lockdown thing they've got going on. This is a pretty horrible game for Ragnaros if you look at it. One of the main things we've got going for us is the map. Apart from the map, the comps definitely don't do us any particular favors. There's a ton of CC in the enemy team. Tassadar's got very consistent slows, of course. We've got Arthas, who's got very consistent slows. Vala's got potential for CC for stuns with her ultimate, her heroic, Rain of Vengeance. Uther's got stuns. We've got Garrosh, who obviously has got slows, stuns, and displacements like that. So it's fairly scary stuff, you know. There's a lot for us to be worried about as Ragnaros. Pretty difficult for us to go into a team fight where the number one target to be focused down, obviously. We're the squishiest, we've got no mobility, and yeah, that sort of CC can wreck us. So that puts us in a fairly rough spot in this game. The good news is that, like I said, it's Infernal Shrines, which is one of Rag's best maps. He gets a lot of value out of his AoE abilities on the shrines. And then, of course, Moulton Core, his trait, also is super useful here for either clearing out the shrines or defending against the Punisher. Or alternatively, pushing with the Punisher, too. Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. I've been playing obviously a lot of World of Warcraft, and we're doing all the level 60 raiding content at the moment. So we've been doing Molten Core and fighting Ragnaros in WoW. So it's pretty fun to actually be playing to play him in HOTS and see his stuff in HOTS, having just got a refresher on what he was like in WoW as well. Level 7 I didn't mention yet, but I went for Moulton Power. You can see that just above our health bar in the bottom left. So every enemy hero that we hit with our Living Meteor, it's going to increase the damage of our next Meteor by 20%, up to double damage if we hit all 5 heroes. I mean, that's almost never going to happen, but in theory you're going to be doing... There's a fairly good chance you're going to have 20%, if not 40% bonus damage on each particular Meteor. In that case, we actually got 3 hits with our Meteor, so our next Meteor is going to hit quite hard. So it just adds up to a nice little bit of extra damage, which is quite convenient. Vala almost goes down. Okay, Vala does go down. That's good. One thing is you'll probably be able to tell I'm not super familiar with Ragnaros's W build. I always play the Q build. I know when he first came out, a lot of people were big in on the W build. I played basically the Q build almost every single time. Played E build a few times, and W build by far the least, so I'm definitely not too familiar with using the W as effectively as possible. So I would say in this game, it's relatively decent Rag play, but certainly there's, skill shots, particularly with the W, that could be done better, and people could get more out of that if they really wanted to. I just think interesting here about we could use the Molten Core to push. It's always, I think it's a big consideration, especially on this map, when to use Molten Core. I think it's actually fine here in this case, just to secure that as quickly as possible. The enemy team will have 10 to defend. I mean, it's unlikely we're going to get a good position to push. We basically have to destroy that force that we're attacking at the moment before we'll be able to use Molten Core aggressively. So we're still a fair ways off actually being able to do that with a Punisher that's so early on in the game. They're pretty weak early on in the game. So yeah, that's something to watch out for. You can see here, I'm pretty sure it worked pretty well. We could pop Molten Core right here, but it's not really a huge loss. I honestly felt like, I'm not sure, it's hard to quantify, but probably using Molten Core to just destroy the shrine quicklier and safelier is probably a better idea. We threw Lava Wave up top. Oh, we took Lava Wave because there is a reworked level 20 Lava Wave talent. Which I'll come to in a second, but took Lava Wave in this game to show that off. And we threw Lava Wave up top just to kind of split push, get that XP, and you can see that top fort's taking loads of damage. It's very close to being destroyed. So all that sort of stuff is combining well to give us, it's going to add up to a pretty decent XP lead. I think Lava Wave's quite interesting. You can either throw it with you and hope to catch people out. Doesn't happen all that often, but it can happen. Or you can throw it into a side lane to kind of push out the side lane and get all the XP from that. You can see you're actually stuck in a really rough spot here. It's not working out too well for us at all. Splash damage of Tastar plus the AoE of Arthas, leaving our team in a rough spot, and they do get taken out. So stuff being traded left, right, and center. This is actually a pretty good game, I thought, for the W build for Rag as well. There was something to be said of course, for at level 16, taking the Q talent there, Giant Scorcher, because they've got two, obviously, very tanky tanks with Garrosh and Arthas, so that max HP damage with their Q with Giant Scorcher at 16 could have been a nice option. In case you don't know what that is, when you hit heroes with your Q, you'll do 9% of their max health over 3 seconds as bonus damage. That would have been pretty good here. But apart from that, I think the W build should work pretty well. Like I said, we can't really afford to go in super aggro on Ragnaros, because we're just going to get stuck in the Arthas slow, in the Tastar slow, and we're going to die. We only have an Oriole to heal, and she doesn't have all that much single target healing, so we have to be fairly careful about that and fairly watch our position. Now, I've picked up Resilient Flame here at 13, and again, this also synergizes pretty well. This is probably the one you'd typically be going for with the W build, because the other two talents are for your Q and your E, and you don't have any of those talents yet. This is also an interesting move. I'll come back to the talent in a second. But here we know that we've pushed Garrosh away. We also have got a talent tier advantage, so our team should be doing fine in this fight. And again, I'm not going to be very effective in team fights in this particular game, so I'm not like too worried about it. But that's why I didn't go to that fight straight away, but instead started on the shrine, because we know that we should be just fine. You can see our Meteor doing lots and lots of damage right there. Worked out quite nicely, actually. So yeah, that's kind of the decision-making process there. I also want to mention, because I didn't mention it at the time, but when we were going to, we got the first Punisher in the game, we actually Hearthstoned away. We didn't push with the Punisher. Instead, we brought Rag down, and we went to soak the lanes. Again, that's something that's quite important. Again, the initial Punishers are quite weak, so there's a lot of value to actually soaking XP. And that's usually what you want to do. You want to try to get the XP from all of the lanes. You don't just want to push with the Punisher, at least at the start. Once you get onto keeps, it's different. But certainly at the start, I mean, the first Punisher is probably not going to destroy a fort. In this game, it didn't. Probably just going to destroy the towers. So you don't want to overinvest in pushing with it. You can kind of let the Punisher do its thing. And be happy enough with that. Alright. So we're just poking away with our W, trying to land that on the heroes at the back as much as possible. Just spread out that damage as much as possible. Particularly if we can hit it while the Tastar shield is down, or we can pressure that Vala out a little bit and make things pretty nice for ourselves. Now, we're positioning on this shrine pretty aggressively as Rag. We want to spend our mana here as much as we can. You can see we actually hit 4 heroes with that Meteor, which is pretty good. Spend our mana as much as we can. We were safe. We threw out our Lava Wave to try to force some of the enemy heroes onto that shrine, and also to clear out the minions, which is somewhat useful too. And yeah, then we ran back, we popped Moulton Core, and we're starting to throw our Moulton Core spells in here to secure this for us. Now again, if I'd aimed that better, we could have killed Vala. I let her get away, which was not good. Actually looks like, yeah, it looks like she should die to Chromie. Oh, a nice shot by Chromie, and Chromie takes her out. Garrosh lives with about 1 hit point. Lucky him. Arthas gets taken down, and this is a nice little push for us then there. So that's fairly standard, like I would say, Ragnaros play. In that sense, again, like the decision-making process for me there was, okay, go onto the shrine, you spend your mana in a fairly aggressive position on the shrine, obviously when the enemy team is about to invade, but you can throw out your spells, and then I know that I can escape and get into Molten Core and then back my team up. So we'll basically get good value out of our spells, use all of our cooldowns, and then we're going to get to our Molten Core as quick as possible to back up our team once that fight starts going a little bit crazy. Oh yeah, Resilient Flame at level, you can see it's on my kind of number 1 hotkey there. This gives us 40% armor, or 40 armor, sorry, when we get stunned, which is nice. For 3 seconds, which is quite nice. So it doesn't proc off Garrosh's Q, but it does proc off Garrosh's E. And also it'll proc off Uther, it'll proc off Rain of Vengeance from Vala, so I figured that'd be pretty useful. It's just going to mean that if we do get displaced by Ragnaros, like this, we're going to have 40 armor, so a lot of the damage they would have wanted to do there is denied. That sucks for them. Oh my god. Rest in pieces. There goes the enemy team. That mosh was really, really good, and this is going to give us actually a very good chance to end. This is interesting here, where to send the Lava Wave. It's a fairly big decision in terms of we could send it top to ensure that top's going to be pushed, but feels like top is going to be pushed anyway. I sent it in mid lane to get the mid lane pushed out a little bit, because there's potential we could retreat through. If we're not able to get the core, we could retreat through the mid and get some value out of that. Trying to just poke damage with their W, then pop into Molten Core to try cover this. Garrosh trying to interrupt, doesn't get there. He actually could have, I think, if he shot it from max range. Also, it'd have to be max range to interrupt. And this is a nice position for us, enemy team fighting under Molten Core, which means we're going to get some pretty decent damage out on them. He's doing what we can. Garrosh gets stunned against the wall by Oriel, and he goes down. Very nice. And yeah, the core is starting to fall. So yeah, the lava wave in middle hasn't really equated to much, but it's done a little bit at least. We wouldn't want to do it bottom. I think the decision there was really whether to send it middle, to just get some pushing pressure there, or whether to just save it and then throw it top if we're running away. Yeah, that's what happened. Oh, level 16, by the way, we've got Living Meteor Bomb, which makes your Living Meteor explode at the end of its path for a fairly medium chunk of damage. It's kind of nice, fairly difficult to hit. Certainly you'd want the Shifting Meteor at level 1 to redirect it to help land that. And there you can see the talent build there. So Shifting Meteor, Fire Ward, Moulton Power, Lava Wave, Resilient Flame, and Meteor Bomb. And then at level 20 there is Lava Surge. So Lava Surge, it'll give you an additional charge to Lava Wave, and now they've buffed it up. It'll give you 30-second cooldown reduction on Lava Wave, which is actually quite nice. It's actually quite a big deal. And there are a couple of other talent changes for Ragnaros as well for his E build, which we didn't see in this game. So at level 1, Engulfing Flame, which used to give cooldown reduction on Blast Wave, will now instead increase the damage of Blast Wave by 75% and increased its radius by 15%, so making your E a more relevant damage dealing tool from the start of the game, which is pretty nice actually. They also changed his, they removed his E talent as previous E talent at level 7, which used to double the damage of your E if you cast it on yourself. That's basically been baked into Engulfing Flame at level 1 instead, albeit in a slightly weaker form. It's ultimately a buff though, of course, because you've got basically a level 7 talent then for free that you wouldn't have got before. There's a new level 7 talent called Blistering Attacks, which is every 10 seconds your next basic attack will do 60% bonus damage, and the enemies hit by your abilities will reduce the cooldown by 1 second. That's also pretty appealing. With the Meteor, if you land a good Meteor, hit multiple people with that, you can get multiple Blistering Attack procs. You get multiple procs with your E as well, with your Q. It's actually quite nice talent, and his basic attacks hit hard. So that's kind of a nice little bonus. And yeah, there you go. That is the new Ragnaros. I think he's pretty cool. He's roughly about as strong as he was before. They've just made the W builds, the E builds, a bit more appealing and just given him a bit of talent variety. I think Sulfura Smash is usually going to be the way to go, of course, unless you're doing some XP soak focused gameplay. So yeah, there you go. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time for more Heroes of the Storm. Bye bye.